Welcome, everybody, to Firehouse Talks with Jersey Rick, igniting leadership excellence. I'm Rick, and this is my able co-host, Emily.
Hi.
This podcast here, we talk about anything and everything related to leadership, and we also do it from a biblical worldview. These past two episodes, we've been talking about the dual footprints of mentoring, and we're doing deep dive, deep dig into it. And today we're going to be talking about a commitment to kill the ego, humility in mentorship. And so there's a fine line, folks, between confidence and arrogance. And that line is our ego. And we're going to be taking a look at that subject today. So, Emily?
Yeah. So let's jump in by defining ego. So it's self-esteem or self-image. That's healthy, but the unhealthy part of it is egotism, conceit, and self-importance.
Yeah.
So ego can be a growth barrier. People with inflated egos resist correction, feedback, or even new ideas. Ego builds walls instead of bridges.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you cannot be mentored if you already believe you know everything.
Yeah. And I have a book here, Emily, and it's got a really catchy title called Leadership. It was written by a
Original.
Yeah, written by a gentleman named Al McMichaels. He was a sergeant major of the Marine Corps. And there's a quote in there in his book. I read it several years ago, but I remembered it and I love it. And Sergeant Major McMichael said the first sign of stupidity is when you think you know so much that nobody can tell you anything. And just stop and think about that, for the viewers. Who do you know that is like that? And hopefully it's not you. But man, I'll tell you what, that is a red flag. Nobody can tell you anything because you know it all. Now, the author, uh, John Maxwell, and I'm also a member of the Maxwell Certified Leadership Team, he talks about the law of awareness, which is you have to know who you are to grow to your potential, but you have to grow in order to know who you are. So we've got to know, where am I at in life? Who am I? What am I doing? Yeah, and it boils down to self-awareness and humility. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to ask you to ask yourself what part of your ego needs to die so you can grow?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gonna drive a stake through our egos. It's all around us. Hey, look at the Bible, the book of Proverbs. I challenge you. Read Proverbs. You can read one a day. There's 31 of them. You can read one proverb a day and see how many times the word pride shows up. And it's not in a good fashion either. Pride leads to downfall. Pride is that barrier that Emily has talked about. Pride drives people away. Some people are so egotistical and arrogant that they can't squeeze their head through the door to get into a room. And lots of times you can tell who they are just by the way that they walk into the room, how they carry themselves, how they treat other people.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about what ego and then T looks like. So you cannot lead someone who won't be led. So these are warning signs to look out for when you're looking at mentoring someone. Constant name dropping or self-promotion, dismissive attitude toward feedback, defensive posture when challenged.
Now, I had an individual pop into my mind, Emily, and someone that you know, and you're probably thinking of the same person who shall, remain nameless. And definitely those last 2 points that Emily mentioned, dismissive attitude towards feedback.
Yep.
You're not the boss of me. You can't tell me anything. You're not my battalion chief. And the defensive posture when challenged. Yeah, those type of people can't be led.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, cause.
Yeah, it's difficult to mentor the arrogant.
Yeah.
Like I said, that quote, from Al McMichaels, the first sign of stupidity is when you think you know so much, nobody can tell you anything. It's
Yeah.
because their ego, is drowning out the wisdom. Their ego will put out any flame of hope that is there. And as a mentor, you're going to be spending more time tearing down walls than building the person up.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, do you really want to mentor this person? Eh, Ask them some challenging questions. If they come to you and they say, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" and they've got that ego, you know, you should look at this and ask yourself some questions to begin with and make an honest assessment. Is this possible? Well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself right there. Before the mentee, you got to let's try that one again.
Tongue twister.
Metaphorically, kill conceit and arrogance before those faults destroy you.
Yeah.
Before those faults destroy you. So we just briefly talked about the ego and T, but let's talk about the ego in the mentor. And that's when the mentor is the problem. And, you know, do not let your ego overshadow the mentee, or don't intimidate. Some people just love to intimidate others. The mentee may be intimidated by you and you don't even intend it. They may be intimidated because you've got a good reputation in the organization. They may be intimidated by you because of your rank. They may be intimidated by you because of your seniority. Now, here's one. It was craziness. And a friend of mine was talking to somebody else in the department and was asking, why didn't you bring this problem to me? And his response was, is like, well, your mustache intimidates me. Now that is one of the most stupid excuses. That's along the lines of my dog ate my homework.
Low self-esteem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, really? You know, you were afraid to talk to the guy because he's got a mustache?
Wow.
That's stupid. That's it. Man, if you're afraid to talk to somebody because they got a mustache or because they've shaved off their head or because they've got a beard or because they don't have any facial hair or because she's a blonde and this one's a brunette, you're afraid to talk to them for any of those reasons, it's like that's your problem, man. that
Hmm.
that's that's not theirs. That is your absolute problem. And yeah, mentoring needs to be a transformational relationship, where the person being mentored is formed, and actually the person who is the mentor should be transformed through it as well.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the result is if the mentor is the problem and the ego is the problem, is the mentee may never seek mentorship again. They may be so burned out that
Yeah,
they lost that opportunity altogether. And the relationship that begins and ends in failure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So Proverbs 11:2 says, when pride comes, then comes shame, but with the humble is wisdom.
yeah. And Emily, I want to bounce back to a point that you brought up about the relationship begins and ends in failure. Hey, pull your head out of your rear end and think about what you're saying to people. I know of an individual who wants nothing to do with any type of mentoring, coaching, or counseling just because of something that the coach or the mentor said that was reinforcing the bad spot that the guy was already in. I know what you mean. I'm some people just don't like people like us. I feel just like you do, and people don't like us. I think, what? That guy's got cranium ractosis. He's got his head shoved up his rear end. He needs a good swift kick in the butt. Well, you're going to kick him in the head because that's where his head's at. It's up his rear end. You know, your words can be very damaging to somebody else. So be careful what you say.
Mhm.
If somebody's coming to you and they have low self-esteem, You don't need to pat them on the backside and spoon feed them, but don't put yourself into a position that where you're feeding that low self-esteem on their part by saying, "Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I feel exactly the same way." You're not helping. You're absolutely hurting. And you have to ask yourself the question, am I, as a mentor, coming from a place of humility or superiority?
Yeah.
Because the other side of that thing, to where, hey, you agree with them, I'm that way, people don't like us, they don't like people like us, but with our personalities, that type of stuff is, if you come that you are painting a picture that you are more superior to them than they are, how long is that going to last? You're going to drive them away, and you may drive somebody away to the point that they won't ever again want to be mentored. And you who have done that are guilty and are at fault for doing that. So being a mentor is a trusted position. It's a trusted relationship. You need to look at it as a privilege. It's a privilege that someone has come to you
Yeah.
and said, "Would you mentor me?" And handle that as a privilege. Yeah. Don't put that in your, like a ribbon in the military wears, you put it on there. It's like, oh, I'm a mentor now. I'm a superior individual. They've come to me because I know more than Joe Schmuckatelli knows. No. You're going to kill that. And there needs to be a war against pride.
Yeah.
Now, when I wrote this blog, and just in case you've missed the first two episodes here, and I would let me try that one again.
Encourage.
Thank you, Emily. I would encourage you to go back and listen. This series started actually several years ago, a couple of years ago, 2, 3 years ago, when we were in North Carolina, and my daughter Rebecca and I were walking along the beach at sunset, and on the water's edge. And I turned around and I looked back behind us, and both of our footprints were in the wet sand, and they were highlighted by the setting sun. So I took a picture of it and thought this will make a good blog sometime. Well, a month later, I wrote the blog, Dual Footprints, becoming a world-class mentor. And I think it was approximately 2 years ago, working with Emily here,
Yeah.
we turned that into an ebook. Which, listen, folks, if you are interested in getting that ebook, send me an email. My email is in the show notes, and we'll recap that again. So that's where this came from. But each one of those blog articles had a picture attached to it. And this one here on killing the ego is from a picture that I took at the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia. World War I aircraft that's hanging from the ceiling that has a gunner in the back. And I took a picture staring right down the machine gun. So I wrote, "Look down the barrel of the machine gun in the picture." Yeah, and kill your ego. Because if you don't kill your pride, your will kill your influence.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. And Emily,
Yeah.
do you want to, how do you respond to people like that?
I run away.
Yeah. 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 Well, we don't want to be around them at all,
No.
because they're so proud, and it's coming across like a neon sign, big
Mhm.
flat neon sign. And yeah, we just don't need that at all.
Absolutely. So, how do you kill the ego? So, a couple tips to help you practice killing your ego is practice self reflection daily. Surround yourself with truth tellers.
Ah,
That's a really big one because
yeah.
you could surround yourself with people who just flatter you and or compliment you but genuinely, and you really want to make sure like who are those people in your life that will tell you the truth, keep you in reality and not in the reality that you've created for yourself or that they're creating for you, but who will truly tell you, look you straight in the face and tell you like what what's going on.
Yeah, and may I interject real quick? And your truth tellers need to be people that you trust,
Absolutely.
because there's always going to be somebody that's going to come on and they've just met you, or they barely know you, and they're the fault finders, the people who want to find fault with you.
Yeah.
Now, yes, they may be saying something that is true, so we just can't automatically dismiss them, but we need to have discernment. Look for those truth tellers. And I when I first got promoted to battalion chief, Emily, and I had a meeting with my shift, I told them, I said, don't brown nose me or kiss my rear end. I don't like brown nosers. Yeah, absolutely not. You won't get any place. You won't get any place with me by doing that. And so, hey, you're mentoring somebody and you're expecting the mentee to kiss your rear end, you got a problem. If you're the mentee and you want to kiss their rear end, you got a problem. We
Mm-hmm.
need to be truth tellers. So
Absolutely.
I'll let you continue with that, how to kill the ego.
Yep. So, other tips is celebrate others' growth and
Mm.
not your role in
Ooh,
it.
wow.
Big
Yeah.
one. Pray for humility and be ready for the test.
Yeah, wow. That's I like that, Emily. Celebrate others' growth and not your role in it. It's like,
Mm,
look at me,
yeah.
they're where they're at because of me. So yeah, ask yourself, folks, whether you're mentoring or you're the mentee, do you want to grow and develop? Kill your pride and egotism, humble yourself so you can effectively, positively impact the lives of other people. Think about this too, is what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
Mm,
When
yeah.
you leave your organization, what kind of legacy do you want to have? Or, it's your funeral. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What would you like people to say about you?
Yeah.
I always would tell the people on the shift that and ask them the question is, when you get transferred to another shift or you leave the department, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want people to mention your name respectfully? Or do you want people to say that blankety blank, such and such blankety blank? Yeah, because there's plenty of those. There was one individual that I dealt with when I first got promoted to battalion chief. He did not want to be led. He was one of the most arrogant, obnoxious individuals that I have encountered in my life. And it truly turned into a situation that when that guy left the fire department, we celebrated. We celebrated. And we continued to talk about that guy and the problems that he created and how bad he treated people. And even to this day, when I meet with people from the department that were around during that time, so many times that guy's name comes up, and it does not come up in a positive manner. And it probably never will. Probably
Mhm.
never will come up in a positive manner. So you got to kill your ego.
Yep. And in order to kill your ego, you have to choose humility.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the big key
Yeah.
takeaway.
Absolutely.
So to recap from this episode, ego is the enemy of growth, mentorship, and connection. Both the mentor and the mentee must commit to humility,
Hmm.
and killing the ego will open the door to deep
Yeah.
transformation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
So that is a wrap for this episode. The next episode, we will be doing focusing on a commitment to listen. And so, as we close this episode, we want to encourage you. Have you struggled with ego in a mentorship before? And what helped you break through? And we always like to leave you with a challenge. So, the challenge we're going to leave you with is choose to walk the humble path this week and see what doors it opens.
Yeah, absolutely. Emily, thank you for that. And listen, folks, thank you for tuning in. This is the conclusion of episode number 39, A Commitment to Kill the Ego, Humility and Mentorship. If you found this episode to be useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Also, in the show notes, you will find my website Fire Officer Leadership Academy.com. You can learn more about the services that I have to offer because I mentor, I coach, and I have classes that I teach as well. And you're also going to find my blog posted up on the website. Its new one comes up every Monday morning at 0500 Mountain Time. And then it gets posted on my LinkedIn profile on Wednesday mornings as well. So I think that's about it for this episode. Emily, thank you for listening. And for those who are watching on YouTube, thank you. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.